It's time for Reason.
But what else can we do? You and I, the parents. I don't have a kid in school yet. She's 3. She will be going to school very, very soon. Am I going to have to be worried about taking her to school every single day? Am I going to have to be worried about someone wanting to harm her at an elementary school? And as we talk about legislation, as we talk about gun safety programs, as we talk about these things that the government can do to some degree, at the end of the day, it's you and I.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Yeah, welcome into the Voice of Reason. This week's flying right on by. I have to say, it's going faster than what we would really like it to be. But hey, you know what? It's not a bad one at all. That's kind of good news when it's going by really, really fast. All right, welcome into the Voice of Reason. It is a Thursday, broadcasting live here in Wichita, Kansas, right in the heart of the nation, literally here on the Big Talker KQAM, right on KGPT TV, channel 2610, and broadcasting all across the Mid-America Network, across the entire Mid-America region. Welcome aboard and good morning to you. So much happening today, so much to get to. I know the weather's hit us again here in the Mid-America region. It is cold, it is snowy, and hopefully many people get to stay home again. A lot of closures in the area. I'm sure we'll get an update on that here relatively soon from the news desk with Rick. And but until then, I want to hear from you. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. Whatever's on your mind today. We have some big news. We have some great guests coming on the show today, and it'll be a fun one. But what day isn't it, right? You can shoot me a message all over social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, at Hoosier Reason. You can email me, Andy, at KQAMradio.com. Let me ask you a question. You ever been in a fight with your spouse? You ever been in a fight with your boyfriend or girlfriend? You ever been in a fight maybe with your boss or your coworker, and you have this big blow up? You have this big thing, this big argument, this big issue, and then you have some time apart, whether it is with your significant other, whether it is with your boyfriend or girlfriend, whether it is with your coworker or maybe your parents or somebody in your family. You have this big breakup, or maybe not even a breakup, it's just a big fight, and you have some time apart to think, to calm down. Now, I'm not one of those. I personally, and it's funny, when I get in an argument with my wife, I want to settle it then. I don't like to have this linger on and drag out. I want to be done. I want it to be over. Let's address it. What's wrong? What issue do you have? What issue do I have? Let's work it out. Let's hash it out. Let's make it fine. And then we move forward, because it stews with me. It boils up in me, and it continues to stay there. I don't like that, because by the time we reconvene, I'm still more worked up than what I was before. Let's just address it and be done with it. She, on the other hand, likes to have that space. She likes to be able to calm down. She likes to think rationally. She likes to not be emotional at the time, so that way we can have a reasonable conversation. Regardless of how you approach this, this is what's happening with our state legislature right now. And it's pathetic. We've had the largest tax increase in state history that happened last session. You're going to be taxed in the state of Kansas more so than you really have in a long, long time. You got that tax increase in July that's retroactive, which means when we file for our taxes this year, and some of you may already have done so, then you're going to be owing the state of Kansas money. We raised our taxes again in July because of that or in January because of that same bill. We still have huge issues on the table right now. What are we going to do to compensate for the revenue that we're still lacking because the government wants to spend more money? We have an educational debate where the Supreme Court said, yeah, you know what? You need about $600 million more in cash in order to fund education. We have the Supreme Court coming out and saying, yeah, you know what? The judicial branch actually needs about $20 million more in salaries because we had to open up food pantries in the Wichita area for individuals that are working in the judicial branch because they're not making enough money. Which they didn't necessarily need that. It was just kind of a political ploy to be able to promote that agenda, say, look how bad these individuals are actually off right now with working. Then we have the corrections facilities. Hey, we need more money there. Then we need more of this, and we need more of that. Then we need more of this, and we need more of that. And it just goes on and on and on and on. And guess what's being done at the legislative level right now? Not a thing. Nothing of substance, at least. They're passing a few things. They're talking about certain things. They're debating about a few things. But nothing of substance is actually getting done. Nothing of importance is actually getting done. Why? Because they want to linger it on. They want this to be drug out. They love the Fast and Furious argument. They love the idea of being able to wait till the very end and then get whatever we can in, cram it in there, pass it, and say that we don't want an extended session, do you? So you might as well just go ahead and pass what we advocate for right here, right now, at the very end of the session. It's like the boyfriend and girlfriend that once they reconvene after the fight, they're not addressing the elephant in the room. Once they reconvene again, it's not actually addressing what actually caused them to fight, but it's trying to ignore it, pretend it never happened, and then move on with their lives. And that's never healthy, by the way. Try that. If you remember back in high school, post-high school, when you were young, when you were dating, it never happens. It never works well. If you try and say, yeah, you know what, let's just forget all about it and let's just move on. Because eventually, if you become more serious, then it comes back to bite you in the end. If you're married and you've had that big blow up and that big fight, which every couple does, that's what strengthens you, but you learn from it and you start to grow from it because you address it once you reconvene after the emotions run down. You calm down a little bit and you have that rational discussion. That is how you actually grow from whatever happened for you to be a better couple. The legislature right now, it's in the committees. It's working on it. We're addressing it. We're thinking about it. We're writing it. Come on. We have not heard a single bill come out that actually addresses this reasonably. We haven't heard discussion of what's even happened in the committees. You would think that with such an important issue like that we would actually have, some type of discussion or transparency. They're all about transparency right now, right? That if they were working on it in the committees, that we would get a story saying, hey, you know what? This is what we're working on in the committees. Hey, everybody. Hey, general public that's concerned about your education, that's concerned about your school shutting down, that's concerned about your kids actually getting the education they need. Let's actually have a little bit of transparency. And hey, general public, this is what we're doing. What do you think? As we're going about this debate and discussion. We haven't heard that. I've heard one story saying that, hey, you know what? One way that we could potentially be able to provide the financial obligation for this is to raise property taxes. Oh, you in Derby, you're going to love that after just raising the bond for $114 million and raising that, that's the price of a pizza every month. If we start raising property tax at the state level as well, then it's going to be more than a pizza for you going into your school. And by the way, every other school in the state because of your taxpayer money going to the state government. Just saying. We're not addressing it. Instead, we're addressing ridiculousness. Some of it. No, I agree with some of the things that they're doing, but it's not the meat and potatoes, the bread and butter of what we should be hearing almost on a weekly basis, almost on a daily basis. Here's what the committee went over. Here's what we're discussing. Here's what we should be doing. Here's the direction that we potentially could be going with some of the financial obligations, with some of the educational issues, and with the Supreme Court. This is where we're at right now, and this is what we're moving forward with. We're not hearing that. Instead, I heard this. This is coming from KSN.com. Wheels spinning and tire squealing would be banned under a bill that advanced in the Kansas House. The Wichita Eagle reported that the bill moved Tuesday with a 59-55 vote. It would set a $100 fine for violations and apply for moving and stationary vehicles in normal road conditions. Now, if you're squealing because you're driving on bad weather like today, and you have a little bit of ice in your squeal, okay, they're not going to fine you for that. But if you're at a stoplight and you start squealing your tires, we're going to fine you $100. Tell me how you're going to enforce this. Don't law enforcement already have enough to do? Don't the highway patrol already have enough to do? Rather than trying to pull you over for squealing your wheels. We're trying to find a kid right now in the Wichita area, as you've been hearing all over the news, which they did just arrest the mother-in-law, and we'll get that story a little bit later as well. But they're still looking for the child. Whether he's dead or whether he's still missing, we don't know. Wouldn't that be the priority of law enforcement as opposed to, you squealed your tires, and we're going to fine you for it? Now, I don't know the motive of it, because it's loud, because it's a nuisance, because it tears up the tires, because it leaves a mark on the road. I don't know the motive behind something like this, and it could very well be a decent bill, fine, whatever. How are you going to enforce it? Does this fall in the category of we're trying to protect ourselves from ourselves again, and we're trying to make the state such a better place that we need to come down on it and have our own rules about everything so that way we can live the happy little life? Come on. This is what we're focusing our attention on. This is what we're focusing our priorities on in the state right now. We have major issues happening, and we refuse to acknowledge them. We have major discussions to be had through transparency, by the way, that we're not even talking about because we're worried about squealing our tires on the road. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I don't get the motive behind this. Maybe you actually understand a little bit more, but the bill does need 63 votes to pass the House, and the close initial vote could mean lawmakers could have difficulty passing the bill when the final vote is actually held, and whether that actually happens or not, time will tell. I don't know, but squealing your tires kind of reminds me of the Barack Obama mentality of, oh, you want better gas mileage? Yeah, don't worry about it. You know, we're going to reinvest on our side through the government subsidies, but you can get better gas mileage as long as you just keep your air pressure in your tires right. Make sure that your tires are pressured the way they need to, and then you'll get better gas mileage. Thank you, Barack Obama. You have saved me from the worries of lack of good gas mileage and efficient cars. How about some of the other issues that we've discussed? We'll come back. Let's go and take a break here. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the other absurd issues. And I don't necessarily disagree with some of them. I agree with some of what they're doing. I don't necessarily just poo-poo it just because I don't like it. But is this the priority we need to be having right now? Is this the priority that we need to be focused on in the state legislature? Yes, we have other issues to address as well, other than just finances, tax rates, and education. Of course we do. But come on. This? Don't squeal your tires this morning because you may get a $100 fine because, you know, that's just, it harms people somehow. I'm not quite sure. This is The Voice of Reason. It's a Thursday morning. Lots to get to today. Stay tuned.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Mid-America Network.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Good Thursday morning to you, starting off your day the best way that we know how to do so. Welcome aboard. Great to have you along. Trying to get excited about the day, trying to get pumped. I know it's hard when it's cold like this and the weather's bad and you don't want to go outside. I get it, but don't worry. We're here to help you start it off the best way that we know. Better than a shot of espresso, better than a cup of coffee. I almost said shot of tequila. Hopefully you're not doing shots of tequila at 6 a.m. But if you are, then I wouldn't judge you anyways. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you're more than welcome to do so. By the way, if you want to watch the show again, other than just during the live show from 6 to 9 a.m. every morning on KGPT TV, you can also watch the replay every evening from 6 to 9 in the evening as well. Start your morning off, start your evening off, and then have the best day that you know how to do right here with the Voice of Reason. 316-721-8255. Now, again, I want to reiterate that the bills that I'm talking about here, I don't necessarily disagree with all of them, but we need to focus on priorities, don't you think? We need to discuss the priorities of what's happening and actually at least get some updates on them. Understand where they're at in the committees, the discussions that we're having with the committees. So let's go ahead and play it as we are talking about the absurd laws right now in the distraction, just as the young boyfriend and girlfriend that had their first fight and they come back together after their time apart and they're not quite sure how to address it and address the elephant in the room. They start trying to work on other things to distract themselves from the priorities. And that includes now the burnouts on the road. How dare that you squeal your tires on that road? How about the extension to be able to drink alcohol earlier at 6 a.m. and be able to serve alcohol earlier at 6 a.m.? That's great! I don't know why we had a law saying you couldn't do that in the first place. Cool. Why now? How about the age and location for candidates running for governor? Great! I agree. Come on. Now that is a little absurd right now because of the fact that we just saw, 2 or 3 high school students try and join from outside of the state because we have no requirements to actually live in the state of Kansas. Okay, a little priority there, a little necessary, I guess. How about repealing carry on campus? Totally unnecessary. We have not had a shooting. We have not had an incident. In fact, we've seen the opposite of that. I know it's a shocker, right? So we should probably ban and repeal the guns on campus. Being able to start doing background checks rather than a constitutional carry. Big priorities in the state legislature. How about wanting to hike up property taxes for the educational funding of $600+ million for our education system? Yes. Derby, you're going to love that. You just raise your own property taxes onto your own. That's funny. Children. And we'll talk about this one here in just a second. How about children and seatbelt regulations, as they're wanting to punish the children who are not wearing a seatbelt during a car accident and who had additional medical issues because of the fact they weren't wearing seatbelts. We'll talk about that one in just a second. Kind of interesting there. Along with, now that we've declared in the state of Kansas porn as a health risk. Don't necessarily disagree, but what does that accomplish? Not sure what it actually does. We may get some details on that one as well in a little bit, but the priorities of the legislature right now, where we're not addressing or focusing on the real issues, the real priorities of the major factors happening in the state of Kansas. We've talked about agriculture. We've talked about job growth. We've talked about business growth. We've talked about trying to expand the workforce. We've talked about trying to have people immigrate to the state of Kansas from other parts of the country, trying to see the initiative, both individuals, workers, and businesses, new industries needing to come here. That's what we should be focused on, not spinning your wheels, literally and metaphorically. Then we see this one, effort to present seatbelt usage to jurors survive challenge in Kansas Senate. And it's kind of an interesting bill that I guess I never would have thought about, but it makes sense. Children who suffer injuries when a drunk driver slams into their vehicle will be scrutinized by attorneys for not wearing seatbelts. The children that didn't wear a seatbelt and was the victim of the drunk driver getting scrutinized by the attorneys at this time. I understand it totally, but it was an interesting concept of how they crafted this. The bill, sponsored by Senator Rick Wilborn from McPherson, Republican, initially failed to survive a roll call vote, but advanced when taken up again this afternoon, meaning yesterday. Several senators challenged Senator Wilborn to explain what would happen to victims in a variety of imagined scenarios, such as crashes involving drunk drivers, people parked and unbuckled on the side of the road, and children riding school buses where seatbelts are not required. We have talked about that in the past, as you know, as well, about the potential for seatbelts to be required on seatbelts or seatbelts in school buses relatively soon. That not advancing right now, but this being part of the scenario. Addressing the hypothetical damages caused by the impaired driver, the senator said the driver's, quote, may have been the sole cause of the wreck, but was not the sole cause resulting in the resulting damage. And that's true. If you're whether you're sitting on the side of the road, or I guess primarily more when you're driving. I mean, I don't wear my seatbelt sitting on the side of the road all the time unless I'm ready to go. But if you're just driving along the road and you don't have your seatbelt on and you get hit, yeah, it's not your fault you got hit. But at the same time, are your medical issues as severe as what they would have been as if you had worn your seatbelt to stop you from being bounced around in your car when you get hit at a high speed? Kind of something to think about. That kind of goes into the situation of, should we expand universal health care and cover medical insurance for everybody else, so that way when they do something stupid like eating a Tide Pod, that we cover their medical expenses because they could have prevented that in the first place. Now, being hit by a drunk driver obviously is not your fault, but could you have had less of a medical issue if you had worn your seatbelt driving as opposed to just being flown around in your car when some idiot actually hits you? Kind of an interesting concept. We'll get your thoughts and calls on that when we come back. I want to hear from you. Would you support something like that? Disagree with something like that? We'll talk about that when we come back. It is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Yeah.
Defending the rights of every Kansan.
I'm not being aggressive, I'm being dominant.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Sweet singers in the front.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Starting off your morning, it is a Thursday. Great to have you along today on a free Friday celebration. That's what we do right here. Let's start it off the right way. What do you say? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, I want to ask you about this. Should we start looking at everybody's responsibility of securing and protecting themselves? Oh, we're talking about not guns in schools. We're talking about seatbelts. That's right. Same concept. Is it our responsibility to protect ourselves and limit the damage? When it comes down to it, look, I am one of those where I do not like in any way, shape, or form laws that protect ourselves from ourselves. I do not like the banning of smoking in certain areas. If you want to smoke, all the power to you. If you're going to get lung cancer, then you know what? I'm not going to cover your health coverage because of the fact that you smoked and you got lung cancer. That's on you because you chose to do that and you knew the risk. If you eat a Tide Pod, I do not want to cover your medical expenses because you chose to eat a Tide Pod that you knew had bleach and a bunch of toxic chemicals in there that could potentially kill you. If you are riding a motorcycle and you're not wearing a helmet, just because it's not mandatory, which is fine. I know a lot of people that don't wear helmets. That's your prerogative. If you get in an accident and your head meets the pavement, that's on nobody's fault but you. For that to actually, no, I'm not saying the accident was your fault, but you could have prevented yourself from actually having your head splattered across the wall or the road, as opposed to actually being able to protect it a little bit. That's your prerogative. Is it the responsibility? And this goes into the gun debate too. It's kind of fascinating how protection, how security, how all of that falls into our very own hands to do something about it ourselves. Ourselves, you and I. Because at the end of the day, the government can't protect you. At the end of the day, the community cannot protect you. At the end of the day, it's you and only you. You see individuals trying to rob banks. You see the story about how the guy tried to go into the wig store and ended up getting shot here in Wichita. You hear about individuals trying to break into convenience stores or gas stations or banks all the time. And at the end of the day, are we going to look at a gun control for that? Or are we going to look at ways to actually make the money secure and actually make the convenience store secure and make sure that we're actually not going to get robbed? You hear about people breaking into homes all the time. Is it the fact that we have are we going to blame the down economy and the fact that people are struggling, so therefore they have to do something irrational like going and breaking into a place? Or are we going to actually say, you know what, maybe I should have protection in my home? We need to look at the end of the day, it's you and I, and we're all about personal responsibility here on the show, and that's what I try to teach about, and this is an interesting concept. Yes, an accident, a car accident, is not your fault. It is a terrible ordeal. It's a scary ordeal. People could be harmed. Children especially could be severely hurt. And I'm not talking about, and I agree with them, that I don't think someone sitting on the side of the road should be buckled up. We should start enforcing that, but I wouldn't put it past our legislature right now. I'm not saying that that's the way we should go. I'm not saying that if you are on a school bus that we should start making the seatbelts mandatory on school buses. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. I think that's a completely absurd idea because we don't need to create the bubble of protection around everybody. But we should have protection on our own. If we're driving down the road, there's so many factors that are out of our hands. And we know that. It's not like it's a shocker. Oh my gosh, did you know? There's somebody else on the road that could hurt me. I've never heard anybody say that. And if they did, I would be very shocked. But saying, I didn't realize that there was somebody on the road that could potentially be hurting me. I didn't realize that there was a statistic that says there could be a drunk driver on the other side of the road that could ram into me, or that a tire could be blown, or that someone freaks out because of cute little squirrels running across the street. I didn't know something like that could happen. I never thought that there'd be a danger driving on the road. So we buckle our seatbelts. We don't buckle the seatbelt, we get into an accident, and instead of actually just getting a bruise across our chest because the seatbelt stopped us from flipping over, we ended up rolling around the entire car and going through a windshield, and now we have 3 times the amount of medical expenses. Is it the responsibility of everybody else to cover that? Or even the hospital to charge the crazy amounts of money to cover that and get that person repaired, as opposed to that person saying, you know what, I could have prevented that in the first place? 316-721. Are we being too harsh, or is this the realism of the potential that we could start limiting the liability of everybody else because we actually take the necessary procedures and precautions ourselves with the personal responsibility that we have opportunities for us? I'd like to see that start happening because we don't take responsibility for things today. Obviously, we're eating Tide Pods. We're crying out loud. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Let's shift gears here a little bit. We do have a big event coming up this weekend. It's Equifest, and all you in the egg industry and egg community, you may really enjoy this. Let's go to Rick Everett with that story. What's going on with Equifest 2018?
Welcome in. We are visiting this morning with Justine Staten, who is the executive director of the Kansas Horse Council, and it is Equifest time 2018. Justine, if you could share with us what makes Equifest 2018 extra special.
Well, we have surpassed 20 years. Last year marked our 20th year running successfully, and we are the largest equine expo in the Midwest. So every year we just get bigger and better, and the numbers keep growing, and we just keep packing more into a 3-day expo.
Now, the expo runs February 23rd through the 25th, and tell everyone where you're located.
Thank you. Yes, that's correct. We are located at the Kansas Expo Center in Topeka, Kansas.
And you folks draw people not only from all over Kansas, but you have quite a draw for Equifest.
We do. We started out our first 18 years down in Wichita, and so we have garnered a lot of Oklahoma support from that area, and successively in the Topeka area for the past 2 years, we pulled even more Nebraska attendees as well as Missouri attendees.
Now, since the move from the back in the day Equifest at the Kansas Coliseum north of Wichita, tell us how the fest has grown.
The attendee numbers has gone up probably at least 1,000 from our beginning. It just keeps getting bigger by the number of workshops that we host.
Now, your workshops include everything from equine management to veterinarian care.
That's correct. So this year we have the equine law, business management. K-State Vet Med is on site to talk about health. Our clinicians who will be in the arena will also give us time in those workshops to talk one-on-one about different disciplines that they're representing. We'll have equine chiropractics and massage being discussed. We'll have a bit maker sharing 30 years of his experience and talking about in detail about how the actions of a bit make a difference to your performance. And also, we are fortunate to have the Kansas Highway Patrol visit us on Friday and Saturday to give us updates regarding the ELD, electronic logging device update, and then answer some questions as those are posed.
Now, it's a 3-day event, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, February 23rd, 24th, and 25th at the Kansas Expo Center in Topeka. I understand there's a special rate if people want to attend all 3 days.
That's correct. For all 3 days, $45, and that gets you in the door at 8 o'clock, and it takes you all the way through the Ranch Rodeo on Friday night, Saturday night, as well as the grand finale, Jumper Classic, on Sunday afternoon.
And as always, kids 12 years of age and under are free. Justine, how do people go about getting tickets?
They can sign up online, get their passes online at equifestofks.com. That takes you to the attend link, and the attend link takes you to the Ticketmaster ticket site through Expo Center. So you can go straight to equifestofks.com, or you can go directly to Expo Center and buy your tickets there.
Equifest also has a Facebook page.
We do have Facebook. We also have Twitter and fans of Equifest on Facebook.
Justine Staten from the Equifest 2018 at the Kansas Expo Center this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. For KQAM and the Mid-America Network, I'm Rick Everett.
There it is, the latest from Equifest 2018. That's going to be a fun event this weekend. Make sure to check that out as well. Let's go to the phone, shall we? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
Hey, good morning, Scott. How are you, sir?
It's time for another Black History lesson since this is Black History Month.
What you got?
Well, they have a lot of publicity here about a Black Panther movie.
Yes.
And the only true kingdom, well, actually there are two of them, but the one that comes close to what the Black Panther kingdom was Great Zimbabwe. Great Zimbabwe was right above what they call South Africa country today. But the Mutapa and Razu people were the ones that had empires there, and those were from the Shoshone people. Now, these people were more advanced than everybody around them, and their kings were more like warrior kings. They went up against the Portuguese on several occasions, fighting the colonialism, and they did to the point where the Portuguese had to pay them tribute to do any type of business in the area. The resistance to colonialism and slavery is more of a African tradition than a lot of people might not think that. But see, in the time of Angola, you have Queen Nzinga, who spent most of her reign fighting colonialism and slave traders. And then just in 2009, the Dutch actually brought back the head of a Ghana king. He was kept there all the way to 2009, like I said, and it was because he resisted the slave traders that they chopped off his head, and they kept it up to 2009 before they returned it back to the people of Ghana.
I love it. I love the history on there, and it's fascinating to listen to. Speaking of, by the way, now I don't know anything about the Black Panther movie yet. I have not seen it. It is on my list to see because I have been fascinated about it. But so you're saying that kind of relates back to some of those times before the pre-colonialization in Africa, then? Yes,
like I say, the Shoshone people were the ones who built Great Zimbabwe, and like I say, the building that they made, the giant wall that you see, they weren't made with any mortar. So, they were very sophisticated in how they built their kingdoms and civilizations. And like I say, the only other civilization that would equal that or even surpass it would be what they built in Egypt. The
Sure.
African civilization there, like I say, it went all the way into Ethiopia, from Ethiopia all the way up to Egypt.
All the way up. Scott, I appreciate it. I hate to cut you off there. We're running into a break here, but fascinating information. Black History Month, that is kind of fun to listen to. I do want to watch that Black Panther movie relatively soon. That is on my bucket list to do. We'll talk about that actually a little bit later. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting across the entire Mid-America Network. Good Thursday morning. It's a pre-Friday celebration. That's what we're all about today. That's what I'm saying. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK as we're starting off. It is cold today. I don't necessarily like that. It's slushy and snowy and gross outside. When are we going to see the springtime? We are less than a month away from St. Patrick's Day, and it better not be cold by the time St. Patty's Day hits. Let's go to Rick with the news. What do you say?
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Good morning, sir.
Where, and where?
Hey, I am not a cold. Look, see, I already glow in the dark, albino-ish, like pale. I need the bright, warm sunlight to be able to actually give me some type of a tan so I don't look so, like, cancer sickly.
I thought that's what the makeup did now that you're a famous TV guy.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I do not wear makeup here. This is all natural right here.
Did I just do that?
This is all natural right here. I probably should at times, especially with how glow-in-the-darky I am. Like, especially, I had to do the lighting change in here just because of the fact that when we had the overhead light behind us with the fluorescence, it was so bright that literally you would see it like oring off me. I'm like, I am not God. Like, it was just like a glowing, shiny thing, and it was not a good deal.
All right, quickly before we run out of time here, Wichita businessman Wink Hartman has suspended his gubernatorial campaign. That announcement on his campaign suspension made yesterday. He says he's throwing his support behind Kris Kobach, Secretary of State Kris Kobach. Kris Kobach has yet to name a running mate for Lieutenant Governor. You do the math. A Wichita bank is trying to get money back from a woman accused of making more than 50 withdrawals from an ATM that was spitting out $100 bills in place of fives.
Keep it coming, baby.
Yeah. Wichita Eagle reports that the Central National Bank filed a lawsuit last month in Sedgwick County District Court demanding that Christina Ochoa return about $11,600 plus interest. The bank alleged that she realized that the ATM wasn't working properly and calculated subsequent withdrawals to maximize how much cash was mistakenly dispensed.
How can you think that you can get away with something like that? They do have cameras on the ATMs, just saying.
You know, wouldn't you think the bank would have caught on to something by now?
You would think so.
I was at a Walgreens yesterday afternoon, and in the checkout line, here's people talking about this news story. This is national news on the Associated Press this morning.
That's a huge... Look, I worked at a bank. I filled the ATMs. Now, we only had the one that only did $20 bills, not the numerous ones. But you do an audit almost every single week on the ATM to see exactly how much cash is in there compared to how much it says has gone out. You would figure out pretty quickly that... that there was not the right amount of money in there.
Mom and daughter both in trouble. Mom was the one driving daughter to the bank to make the withdrawals. Daughter had a very valid reason for doing it, though. She said she wanted enough $5 bills to craft a money cake as a gift for an acquaintance who had just had a baby.
Yeah.
That is the news.
Man,
I'm out of here.
That's a fun one right there. Rick with the news.
And that's the news.
Appreciate that very much. And as I'm glad you mentioned the story about Wink Hartman, as he has officially dropped out of the governor's race and he has endorsed Kris Kobach. We will be talking with Secretary of State Kris Kobach in about a half hour at the bottom of the 7 o'clock hour. Stay tuned in for that. The comments, by the way, the message, the official notification that Wink Hartman has sent out via media from his desk. Here's what the letter had to say over the weekend. I, along with Republican candidates for governor, stood on the debate stage to outline a vision for Kansas. I'm proud of our values and our stand for efficient, effective government. I presented that vision to thunderous applause for over 800 Republicans in attendance that Saturday night. But I also listened. I listened to the other candidates, and I quickly came to the conclusion that I would be the spoiler in this race for the conservative values that we hold so dear. I've always said this race isn't about me or my resume. It's about taking our conservative platform and making it into policy to improve the lives of all Kansans. That is why today I am suspending my campaign for governor of the great state of Kansas. Over the past few months traveling the state, I've come to know Kris Kobach and his beautiful family. The Kris Kobach that I know is not the Kris Kobach that is maligned by liberal Kansas media. He is a fighter, and for that we take it. And for that he takes lots of arrows, but he does not back down from the fights for our principles. Standing on the stage Saturday night, I listened. I heard a candidate speaking for me and for my conservative movement, and that is why today I am endorsing Kris Kobach for Kansas governor. We can't keep going along the path we're on. Higher taxes, bloated government, poor service, and out-of-touch governor who won't take a stand on the issues, and most important to Republicans. Endorsing Kris Kobach. Kris Kobach will be joining us at 7:30 to talk about that and a little bit more. Hour number 2 of The Voice Reason coming up. Don't go anywhere.
It's time for Reason.
But what else can we do? You and I, the parents. I don't have a kid in school yet. She's 3. She will be going to school very, very soon. Am I going to have to be worried about taking her to school every single day? Am I going to have to be worried about someone wanting to harm her at an elementary school? And as we talk about legislation, as we talk about gun safety programs, as we talk about these things that the government can do to some degree, at the end of the day, it's you and I.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Yeah, welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 2 of the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, along with KGPT TV. Welcome aboard. Good morning to you. It is a Thursday. It's the pre-Friday celebration. It is the day before what you look forward to every single week. And I think it's been a relatively productive one this week, don't you think? We try to, quote-unquote, carpe diem, as we say every single day. We try to seize the day. We try to take an opportunity to utilize, to progress in a positive way, whether it's with your family, whether it's with politics, whether it's with your career, whether it's with, it doesn't really matter. Whatever that you want to progress in today, focus on it, make it happen. I said yesterday that just in my personal life, I take things by the horn. I try and take the knob up to 11 for everything that I do. When I want to listen to music, I get the most extreme, intense music that I can possibly listen to, crank it up to dial 11 and blare it, baby, because I want to make that happen. When I want to jump into politics, I want to research as much as I possibly can, and I want to blare it, baby, so everybody knows, at least from my opinion, the intricacies of what's happening within the issue. When I drive my car, I want to make it happen. I want to make sure that everybody's flying by me because I'm going by so fast. Not really, but you get the point. And that's what we do on this show. We try and make it as just as entertaining as what you can possibly get, because that's just what we do on this program. 316-721-8255. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Secretary of State Kris Kobach, as he is going to talk about his acceptance of Wink Hartman's endorsement. As you know, and we just heard the news story, is that governor's candidate, Wink Hartman, businessman Wink Hartman, dropping out of or suspending his governor's campaign, and he has officially endorsed Kris Kobach. And the rumor mill has been floating around saying that will it be the Kobach Wink Hartman ticket now? Now, whether it is or it isn't, it's a very interesting adaptation and a movement, progression, evolvement when it comes to the governor's race. We've had some wonderful, wonderful candidates. And look, all of them that were on that debate stage on Saturday night were phenomenal. Kris Kobach was great. Wink Hartman was great. Mark Hutton was phenomenal. Ken Seltzer brought up some fantastic points. All of them were outstanding. Jim Barnett, we've had on the show. He did not participate in the debate. Hopefully he will participate in some other ones coming up. We still have some wonderful candidates, but this is an interesting change of pace when it comes to the race. And you could feel it on the debate stage a little bit. You could see it just a little bit. You could see them playing off of one another relatively nicely. So the question is that everybody's wondering, will it be a ticket that way? I will ask that question to Secretary of State Kobach when he comes on in about 20 minutes and get his thoughts. Whether he answers or not, I don't know. They may not make an official announcement or anything yet, but we will do what we can, and we will ask both what's moving forward with the campaign, what the campaign looks like, and will there be an involvement of Wink Hartman in that campaign? So that's coming up at the bottom of the hour. Hour number 3, Phil Martinez of Phil's Coins. I cannot believe it, but it is the final Thursday of the month. We're almost done with February. Kind of wild. And we'll talk with Phil Martinez of Phil's Coins coming up in hour number 3. Also, we haven't been able to do it for the last few weeks because, well, the transition's been really crazy with the governor's race, or with the governor's administration, with the transition from former Governor Brownback to Governor Jeff Collier, and then the announcement of Lieutenant Governor and everything that's gone along with it. So I am excited that tomorrow, not today, but tomorrow at 8:30, we will be talking with our brand new Lieutenant Governor of the state of Kansas. So we'll do that tomorrow, wrapping up the week, wrapping up the day on a Friday, just to give you a heads up. But let me ask you a question. I do want to talk about this briefly because it's been kind of a hot topic, and it will dramatically affect Kansas if this changes. And I think it's a change for the good. If someone gives you a $20 bill as a gift, here you go, here's $20. Go do whatever you want with it. Do you turn it away and say, no, I don't really want it because you used to give me $100 once in a while, so I'm going to not accept the $20 bill. I'd really like $100. Are you going to say that? Just as a gift. You know what? You're struggling. I saw you hurting a little bit. You were financially struggling. Maybe you need a little bit of help. Here's $20. Go take the kids out for pizza. Go do something special. Nah, thanks. That's a real sweet gesture, but I really need $100. Would you ever say that? Would anybody ever say that? This food stamp problem that's going on in the Donald Trump proposal of wanting to change, going from the EBT cards to actually having the prepackaged food goodies and items be sent to individuals on food stamps and being sent to them for the family, the actual just container of food. That's really what they're saying. You know what? Thanks, but no thanks. I don't like it. I don't like that food. This is almost like the spoiled children, the millennials today, that say, you know what? I just don't, thanks, but I'm gluten-free. Thanks for the gesture to buy me something, but I'm gluten-free today. I cut back on all my breads. I cut back on all of my whatever. I have an allergy to that because it makes me very tired at the end of the day. When was the last time that anybody's actually been truly like gluten-free, other than like a crazy medical issue to where I don't know what, but people have been eating bread for a long, long time, and now all of a sudden everybody's gluten-free. We've eaten meat for a really long, long, long time, and now everybody wants to be vegetarian or vegan. We've eaten these things, and all of a sudden now everybody has some type of medical issue or some type of allergy to just about everything that's on the market. So now you have to have gluten-free and sugar-free energy drinks. Brilliant. Yeah, let's actually have an energy drink to be able to hype you up with sugar, and then have a sugar-free energy drink because, spot on there. We've had all of these out. Now that's what they were complaining about. And I think it's an excuse. And I want to open up the lines to you on this, because the fact that we want to change food stamps to actually having a card sent to you and say, here's a card, like a debit card or a credit card, go buy whatever you want to, instead of saying that and say, you know what? You're not supposed to be really living in luxury when you're on the food stamps. You don't need to be going and buying king crab. You don't need to be buying lobster. You don't need to be buying really expensive things that normal individuals that are working and struggling all the time can't afford. So we're going to send you a packaged food, and if you don't like it, then work towards getting off the program as quickly as possible, because you're not supposed to be living the life of comfort while you're on government social programs anyways. That's just the matter of fact. And we have to admit that. In the state, I know a few years ago, started regulating the EBT cards, and it was a huge issue. I actually was not living in Kansas at the time, but I was still talking to individuals in the state that were actually advocating for this, to limit the withdrawals of $20 a day from the ATM, from the restrictions that you can have on these, so that way we don't see any fraud and people are actually spending it on what they're supposed to be spending it on. But here's what they have to say. A proposal by the Trump administration that calls for placing some food assistance to the poor with meal deliveries and raising questions among the social service agencies. The Trump administration proposed cutting food stamps by $17 billion in 2019 and more than $213 billion over the next decade. All right, first off, $213 billion over the next decade over the 10-year span is not that much. Obviously, $21 billion a year, which is 0.5% of the entire federal budget. I know. It's a scary ordeal. The Office of Management and Budget Director Mick Mulvaney announced America's Harvest Box, which is what the program would be called, saying instead of giving you the EBT card, instead of spending all this money on that, and you being able to do whatever you want with it, that's many of it being spent unwisely, that we're going to give you this little box of food. Instead of receiving the assistance in form of the electronic benefit card, the EBT, recipients receiving more than $90 in monthly aid would get about half of the amount in the form of government-provided non-perishable food items. I say do it for all of it. Honestly, do it for the whole, not just half of it if you make $90 or more in a month, but just all of it. Here you go. Here's some food trays. Have at it. Ration your food. Eat healthy, or it's not even supposed to be eating healthy. It's just supposed to be like surviving. And if you don't like it, then get on something else. Quote, these cuts would leave vulnerable families here in Wayne County, Metro Detroit, who are looking hard to achieve economic mobility without the critical assistance they need to not fall further into poverty. The ingredients and recipe meal kit subscribe service is what they're talking about, trying to mimic like the Blue Apron type program. Users can choose a variety of chef-designed step-by-step recipes and get seasonal ingredients sent to their doorsteps. So you can even make your own kinds of food. I don't even think that. You ever remember going to like your school cafeteria and it was just like the huge can of like corn and the rectangle, your pizza, and the little cup of the fruit. There you go. Have at it. Good luck to you. I'm not one of saying let's just go out and spend it on whatever we want to, because there's a reason that there is fraud in the industry. There is a reason that individuals are very upset with what you're allowed to buy. By the way, I did look at some of the the SNAP program, and what you're actually allowed and not allowed to buy with this program. Junk food, obviously, they say is a no, some of it at least, except for the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 defines eligible food as any food or food product for home consumption, and also includes seeds and plants which produce food for consumption by SNAP households. So soft drinks, candy, cookies, snacks, and crackers, ice cream are food items and are therefore eligible items to be purchased by SNAP. I don't know why that's okay. Cookies and crackers, unless it's like a saltine for your upset stomach when you get the flu, cookies you do not need to be buying on food stamps. Your taxpayer money that you go into the federal government or even go into the state, are you okay with someone turning around and buying cookies? Even if they have kids. Yes, I'm being the heartless individual and say, your family's on food stamps and you have kids and you're not allowed to buy the cookie with the food stamps. No, I am saying that you're not allowed to buy, or you should not be allowed to buy, a cookie with food stamps. You shouldn't. It should be the bare minimum. I don't have cookies in my house right now just because we can't afford it. We went to the grocery store. We had our budget. That didn't fit into the budget. I'm not going to say, you know what? I'm going to spend above my budget to be able to buy cookies for my 3-year-old daughter because she really, really needs it. Nope. Sorry. Next time when we do the budget and we go to the grocery store again and we have a little extra cash maybe, then we'll buy something special for her. But I'm not going to go out of my way and demand, my daughter needs cookies, daggone it. So therefore, I don't care if my budget goes over and I go negative into my bank account. I don't care. I need to buy her cookies. It's not going to happen. That's the mentality we need to have on anybody on a social program like SNAP and food stamps. It is the bare minimum. It should be terrible food. You should, every time you eat it, be like, oh my God, I cannot wait to get off this. In my humble opinion. Your thoughts on this? Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm being way too cold and heartless on this. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I did see the list, and oh, come on, we got to play it. It's been a while. We got to play it.
It's your Pinko Flaming Commie Corner.
Oh, yeah. Let's go ahead and do this as the things that, now, this is not state-by-state specific, but generally in some states where you are allowed to buy some of these things, that the things that make you go, Taco Bell accepting EBT cards in many states. Not all states, but many states. Number one, the fact that you can buy a quesarito at Taco Bell with your government-funded assisted program like EBT. Bail in many states. Convicted felons like drug dealers have reportedly used EBT cards as bail money. Number three, lingerie. Now, in the state of Kansas, you're not allowed to use it here, but in other states, you can buy your lingerie. You can buy that Valentine, that special something with your food stamp card. Don't you feel good about that? Number four, KFC, another fast food joint that does accept EBT cards in many areas of the country. Shoes, Payless Shoe Stores, known for their buy one, get one sales. They're certainly not the cheapest place to buy shoes, but yet many of them also accept EBT cards. Here's a good one. New York, according to the New York Post, accepts EBT cards in strip clubs. There you go. You want to go and enjoy the visual presentation of the ladies? Use your EBT card. Why not? Now in Kansas, you're not allowed to do that, by the way. Lobster has been purchased in multiple cases because of the fact that it is a food, and therefore, because it's a food, you're usually allowed to buy it in many areas. Some states may regulate, but many states do not. Starbucks, while the corporation stores do not accept EBT cards, Starbucks inside store, grocery chain stores, or like Targets or inside different venues are technically owned and regulated by those stores. Therefore, many of them do accept EBT cards. K-Cups, the little K-Cups with the coffee that you put into your thing and it makes the coffee. Yeah, that thing. A lot of people don't buy coffee in this form because it's too expensive, but many of them being purchased by EBT cards and social programs. And then, of course, cupcakes and gourmet cakes. Now, they're even working on it in Colorado. If you want to go down the marijuana discussion, many individuals in Colorado and many other states that have legalized have been talking about wanting to allow EBT cards to purchase your medical purposes of marijuana. Now, in Kansas, it is a little bit different. And here's the rules and regulations in the state of Kansas. No cash assistance to purchase alcohol, cigarettes, tobacco, lottery tickets, concert tickets, sporting events, entertainment, sexually oriented adult material, or use in any liquor store, casino, jewelry store, tattoo, massage, or body piercing parlors. Spas, nail salons, lingerie shop, tobacco paraphernalia stores, vape cigarette stores, psychic or fortune telling. Don't go to the fortune teller and say, hey, am I going to see large amounts of money come in my near future? Probably not going to get a good response on that one. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phone, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, this is Helen.
Good morning, Helen. How are you today?
I'm doing just great.
Good.
I wanted to point out that scripturally, the Egyptians did not build the Great Pyramid. It says in Isaiah 19, verses 19 through 20, says, in that day shall there be an altar, which is the Great Pyramid, which is missing the great capstone, to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar, which is a monument, a memorial, at the border, and the border is like Giza. Is the word Giza means border. Thereof to the Lord, 20, and it will be for a sign and for a witness to the Lord of hosts, armies of holy angels in the land of Egypt. For they shall cry unto the Lord because of the oppressors, and he shall send them a Savior and a great one, and that's the true Jesus Christ, and he shall deliver them in the last days. So, and the chief cornerstone, the great capstone that's missing on the Great Pyramid, that's symbolic of the true Jesus Christ.
There we go. Helen, I appreciate it. I hate to cut you off, but we got to take a break. Very interesting stuff there. There you go. Now you know. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. 24 minutes past the hour. We got to take a break. When we come back, I do want to set the stage for Kris Kobach, Secretary of State, coming on the show at 7:30, along with Phil Martinez at 8 o'clock. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
I could see somebody, by the way, wanting to spend an EBT card at a psychic. Can you tell me, my friends? Apparently they're Dracula. Can you tell me, my friends? How are you going to pay? Oh, here's the EBT. Oh, I see money coming into my future very soon. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Listener on Facebook Live. EBT card list. There's been many times I've seen young kids in Quick Trip purchasing junk food with that card. Of course, that's what we need to stop. Look, you're not supposed to be happy, content, or okay living on these programs in any way, shape, or form. There's a huge ideological difference in the country right now to where we want to increase social programs and increase social spending to take care of people and make them feel happy, but they're not supposed to be happy on there. They're supposed to say, this is the worst I've ever lived in my entire life. How do I get off of it? Oh, how you get off of it? You start actually not being on social programs. It's a temporary thing. It's a hand up, not a handout. And I'm not saying that we need to get rid of social programs, because I agree that we need to have help for individuals in times of need. That's what society does. That's how we help each other. Temporary is what we're supposed to do. And it's supposed to be miserable while you're on it, to where you never want to do it again. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Can you purchase certain things with the EBT card? And would you be preferring the nice little tray? The nice little tray with that. If you remember, we were talking, what was it? I believe yesterday, a couple of days ago, about the farm bill when it comes to the crop insurance, when it comes to the subsidies for the agriculture industry. And we always freak out about the crop insurance. We always freak out about the certain subsidies for farmers and trying to take care of the farmers. But we forget the fact that 80% of the farm bill is always, quote unquote, nutrition. Nutrition, meaning the SNAP program and giving food out to individuals. 80%, and we can't do any kind of cuts in there? Come on. 721-8255. Let's take a phone call before the bottom of the hour. We got about 45 seconds. Good morning. What's your name?
Oh, my name's Ryan.
Ryan, what's going on, sir?
Oh, not much. I'm just driving right now. About the comment about the EBT cards. I do agree with you 100%. I mean, do you feel that sometimes, people that are in bad situations, they kind of get content, not because they want to be, but just because that's the norm to them?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
do you feel that should be any type of a, I don't know, do you feel that should be, thought about, or do you think that people just need to, move on and try and change their mind a little bit?
I think that, and I appreciate it, I think that we need to, look, people get comfortable with the situation that they're in, and they may not even like the situation, but they get comfortable in those and they don't like change. We need to make it to where, we want to help them out to where they're not starving, but make it as miserable as we can to where they don't want to be on that long, and they want to change their lives because they don't want to see that as the rest of their life.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier, your personal political therapist. Give him a call at 721-TALK.
Can you believe that we are officially less than a month away from St. Patrick's Day? I can't say anything, but I am a little excited. Just saying. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Getting ready for that one. Let's get into it, shall we? The big notification, the big news that happened yesterday. Businessman and candidate for governorship Wink Hartman has officially suspended his governor's race, saying over the past few months traveling in the states, I've come to know Kris Kobach and his beautiful family. The Kris Kobach that I know is not the Kris Kobach that is maligned by liberal Kansas media. He is a fighter, and for that he takes a lot of arrows, but he does not back down from the fight of our principles, standing on that stage Saturday night. I listened and I heard a candidate speaking for me and for the conservative movement, and that is why today I am endorsing Kris Kobach for Kansas governor. And on the phone with us here to talk about that endorsement, among other things, Secretary of State and Republican candidate for governorship, Mr. Kris Kobach, back with us. Kris, great to have you back on the show so soon.
Great to be with you, Andy.
Hey, appreciate it very much. First off, congratulations on the endorsement. I think the unification of the part of the conservative movement in the state is a huge asset going into this election.
I think so too. I mean, if anyone was listening to the debate Saturday night, there were only really two conservative voices speaking in the debate, and those were me and Wink. And I'm just really grateful and pleased that Wink has decided to throw his weight behind my campaign and join the team. And it's good for conservatives because this gubernatorial debate isn't about me or any one person. It's about our movement and trying to ensure that conservative values and policies are put back in place in Kansas. And so if we consolidate conservative support behind one campaign, that gives us a much better chance of winning at the end of the day.
Talk to us about the message. I mean, you've been able to go out around the state and talk to individuals and talk to people on the campaign trail, and Wink's done the same thing, along with all the other candidates as well. But the response from individuals wanting that unified conservative movement, has that been a need that you've noticed from different constituents all around the state?
Well, not so much, expressly. People aren't saying, "Hey, Kris, you need to try to persuade others to get out of the debate or anything, get out of the race or anything like that." But what I have sensed is a real frustration that our government in Topeka has drifted away from some really basic conservative ideals. I mean, what would we put at the very top or very near the top of Republican priorities? It ought to be cutting taxes. Yet we just had two record tax increases in 2015 with a sales tax hike and in 2017 with an income tax hike. And so there is this sense among conservatives, myself included, and the people that I talk to, that we've got to do something to turn the ship around, because right now conservatism is in decline in Kansas, and we don't want managed decline. We want to actually make this the conservative state that the people of Kansas want it to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're right. I mean, we have a state that's predominantly Republican in both chambers of the legislature, currently with the governorship. The tough part's going to be, I mean, historically in the state of Kansas, we've seen the governorship go Republican-Democrat just about after every term, and that's been going on for a really long time, and especially with the media going full-out assault on you, on Wink, on and many other Republican candidates, and trying to hype up the Democrats. How do you think, once we get through the primaries, if you're the candidate, or if somebody else is, regardless, and we go into the general election, what kind of obstacles are you preparing for potentially to be able to counter some of those attacks and trying to see if they can get another Democrat in there after the Republican administration?
Well, I think you've summed it up pretty well. The media has been on, the editorial pages of the media have been on an all-out assault against me for years now, and especially as I guess it's been 8 months since I got in the race. You're right. So there is going to be this massive attack. I think, though, there are several reasons for hope. One is that there is a profound lack of satisfaction in Kansas right now with some things like the tax hike. So you have that. And right now, you're the only voice you're going to see on the Republican side right now is mine saying we must roll back the tax hike, and then certainly after the general election. So you're going to see that. I think you're also just going to see a campaign from us that's not like other Republican campaigns. And I don't want to give away too many of our strategies, but we're very much aware of the fact that you haven't. In the last 40 years, you haven't seen a Republican follow a Republican administration. Mm-hmm. There's been this pendulum thing back and forth in Kansas. And so it's important to, I think Kansas voters over history have wanted to change. There's not so much a throw the bums out attitude, but there is a desire for change every 8 years or so. But we'll be giving change in a conservative direction, change that Kansans want. On a whole host of issues. Like, here's another one that frustrates people all the time whenever I talk about it with them. Ever since Sebelius in 2004, Kansas has been using our taxpayer dollars to give a subsidy to illegal aliens in our universities. There are about 600 of them right now getting our taxpayer support to attend college, and it's a violation of federal law. It's outrageous when our own kids could be using a bigger subsidy to attend college, or at least people from Missouri or Oklahoma who are U.S. citizens who would like to come to Kansas. Things like that. And we're going to be reversing those policies. We're going to be taking the state back in a more conservative direction.
How encouraged, or did you feel encouraged after last weekend with the Republican State Convention? I believe I asked you this after the debate as well, and on the coverage for the post-debate there, but the record number of people that showed up to the State Republican Convention, the activism, the excitement, the engagement that people have right now, is that encouraging going into this election for both the governorship and for the midterm elections for our state legislature?
Yes and yes. The reason is you have to. We know where the Republican Party, and most of the people in that room, 800 people or so, are either members of the state committee or their families and friends. So obviously that's going to be a room that's enthusiastic about conservative ideals. But the fact that so many people turned out, I was thinking that there'd be maybe 300 there for the debate. Sure. There were almost 800 people for the debate. And the level of excitement, enthusiasm, the cheering in the room was palpable. You could hear it, and I assume over the radio broadcast as well. And that's important because people have to be enthusiastic. The enthusiasm gap is everything. That's part of the reason that Trump won the presidential election in 2016 is that, Trump's base was enthused. Hillary's base was not. They were kind of sleepwalking to the polls. And that's so important. So you not only have to have voters who believe in your message, which we do in Kansas. It is a fundamentally conservative state, and they do believe in what I'm saying, but you've got to have people excited about it. And that's exactly what we saw on Saturday night.
Sure. Well, I tell you what, the Kansas race for governor has been getting attention, not just because of how many candidates there are, but also the fact that for the first time in 2 decades, the Democrats have a primary that's going to be fun to watch as well. But then we see so many high school students jumping into the race, and now we just saw the story about, 1, 2, or 3 different high school students from out of the state wanting to jump in. Is this going to bring some negative attraction to Kansas as well when it comes to our race? Because not just the fact that we have so many young students, which I like the young engagement, but at the same time, we have so many of them coming in, and then the outside forces from the state of Kansas saying, hey, you know what, let's just throw in just to cause a scene.
I don't know. I'm not sure how much negative attention it brings. On the other hand, you do see some people who see it as a curiosity that, or even a positive thing that these young kids are, wanting. They see the gap. I think the first high school student noticed, or someone told him that, hey, the Kansas statutes don't contain any minimum age for governor, even though they do contain a minimum age to be in the state legislature. You got to be 18, but it's silent on governor. I think the writers of the Kansas Constitution in 1859 said that such qualifications as the legislature may adopt, and I guess the legislature just assumed over the past 150 years or so that either they forgot about that or they assumed that, obviously no one's going to run for governor unless they're of a suitable age and lives in Kansas. But it is curious. Let's put it that way. I don't think it's going to cause negative attention to the state, as you asked. People will just say, "Wow, isn't that interesting?" The legislature's fixing that. They've got a bill now that's moved through the House that will set an 18 minimum age, which really is quite generous if you think about it. I mean, most states would have a minimum age higher than 18. But it does so in the next cycle, so it doesn't change anything for this contest that's currently underway.
Sure.
The other factor is that we won't know what the ballot looks like until we get to June 1st, which is the official filing date. And at that point, a candidate has to either file the requisite number of signatures or provide about a $2,000 fee to get on the ballot. So I assume some of these individuals may not persist in their campaign past June 1st.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the finances are going to be the toughest part of that. Secretary of State Kris Kobach, I know that you're short on time. We got to let you go just because I know you guys are busy, but I have to ask, it's the rumor mill that's been going around for a while, but now with the dropping out of Wink Hartman and the endorsement of him for your campaign, could we see a Kris Kobach Wink Hartman ticket for Governor 2018?
I haven't made any decision about who the lieutenant governor candidate will be, but it definitely is a possibility now. I mean, it opens up our short list a little bit. I'm just delighted that Wink has decided to join the team, and I'm really excited about having his advice and counsel. As you all know, he's a very successful businessman, and I really need his perspective and want his perspective on our team. So in whatever capacity he's a member of the team, I'm just grateful that he's getting on board.
Sure. Well, and with the endorsement, I mean, it was a very highly regarded endorsement that he came out with yesterday. Has he said anything about how involved he will be with the campaign, trying to help you through the primaries and the general?
He said he wants to be involved, and we're going to be meeting in person this weekend and talking about it in greater detail. So there'll be more to come, but we'll keep you posted.
There it is, Kris Kobach, Secretary of State. We appreciate the time, my friend. Good luck on the campaign trail. Congrats again on the endorsement. We'll talk to you again soon about what's happening.
All right, thanks. Great talking to you.
Hey, there it is. That's Kris Kobach, Secretary of State for the state of Kansas, also governor's candidate for the Republican side after his endorsement with Wink Hartman. So great information there. We appreciate that very much. Jumping on short term after the endorsement, and I think that's only going to help the campaign right there. Let's go to Rick with the news. There we are. What's happening, sir?
Well, good morning. How are you?
Hey, that was, you know what? I think that was I really liked Wink Hartman. I really liked him.
What, you like him less now?
No,
well,
I don't.
What do you say
no.
You liked? It's past tense. It's not past tense.
I liked Wink Hartman running for governor.
Okay.
I liked that. I think this is a very, very smart move. I think this is very good.
Well, as Kris Kobach said, more will be revealed as time goes on. So I would love to be a fly.
And he's on the short list. When
I would love to be a fly on the wall of that weekend meeting that's going on. So, well, very good. More will be revealed, and we'll stand by for that. The search we're also standing by for is the search for 5-year-old Lucas Hernandez. It's now turned into a criminal investigation. Wichita police did hold a news conference yesterday afternoon, and Deputy Chief Gavin Seiler said that the stepmother of the missing 5-year-old Wichita boy has now been lodged into the Sedgwick County Jail. 26-year-old Emily Glass booked into jail around 3:30 yesterday afternoon. She's being held on 2 allegations of child endangerment. Meanwhile, the search aided by the Federal Bureau of Investigation for 5-year-old Lucas Hernandez continues. As you heard, Republican Wink Hartman has dropped out of the 2018 gubernatorial race. That leaves us with a field of, well, we've got Kris Kobach, as you just heard, vying for the nomination, along with current Governor Jeff Collier, former State Senator Jim Barnett, former State Representative Mark Hutton, Insurance Commissioner Ken Seltzer, and 3 high school students. Ed O'Malley dropped out earlier in the race.
I do have to say real quick, all of the candidates that we have, the Republicans, rock solid.
Yeah,
all of them.
It's a good field of candidates, so it'll be very important, as always, to get out and exercise your vote in this upcoming primary. As we talked about in the 6 o'clock hour, a Wichita bank trying to get money back from a woman that it accuses of making more than 50 withdrawals from an ATM that was spitting out $100 bills in place of 5s.
Bravo.
Yes.
Bravo.
Christina Ochoa is now named in a court case that the bank, the Central National Bank, has sued and is wanting the return of its about $11,600 plus interest. Police have arrested a 21-year-old man in connection to a shooting in Wichita early Monday morning. Sedgwick County Jail records show 21-year-old Raymond Alvarez Jr. booked into the Sedgwick County Jail earlier this week on attempted first-degree murder allegations, aggravated robbery, and other charges. The 19-year-old victim who was shot in the head was hospitalized in critical condition. Wichita police saying it could be a drug deal that went bad. DOC, Department of Corrections, records show Alvarez has spent time in prison for aggravated battery. He was just let loose on parole last September. And new details have been released surrounding the alleged assault of 2 children at Wichita's downtown YMCA. That probable cause affidavit came out yesterday that says 21-year-old Caleb Gaston was seen actually striking the 4-year-old child twice in the head before video surveillance sees him taking that 4-year-old child into a bathroom where the alleged assault occurred at the kids zone of the downtown YMCA. So that is the news. Be careful out there on your commute. The second day in a row that icing conditions have closed area schools. This time it took with it Butler Community College and Wichita State University. I'm Rick Everett. That's the news. I'm out of here.
There you go. You know what? I do have to say that individual that harmed the young girls at the YMCA, I don't even know what to say to it other than he will get his. He will get his. There it is. Rick with the news.
And that's the news.
721-8255, 721-TALK. Let's go ahead and take a break. Wrapping up hour number 2 when we come back, hour 3. Starting off with Phil Martinez of Phil's Coins. This is the Voice of Reason.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
The big headline Drudge Report right now. CNN gave scripted question to a shooter survivor after denying question about armed guards, wanting to give the scripted questions to try and catch up the Republicans, catch up the conservatives when it comes to the gun control debate. It's a shocker, right? So we saw the story floating around social media about the individual. Now, some say, put on the conspiracy theory tinfoil hat right now, some say that the individual that you see that pretty much has gone to like 3 or 4 different school shootings all over the country and has been a victim of them, actually is not a victim of them, but has been a scripted actor that goes there to dramatize for some of the media, and they've caught him. Now it looks like the FBI is actually investigating it. They found the yearbook, found the individual is not part of any of those and has linked to them. Some say in the conspiracy theory world that the shootings actually didn't happen and that it was just a stage to actually create the shooting. I would go more to the fact that I would say that the media has them on hand, on standby, ready to go when an event happens in order to try and promote their agenda during the crisis. Because remember, no crisis should be left unattended. We should utilize and actually try and use as much of those crises as we can every single day. I do want to read a story a little bit later in the show if I get an opportunity to do so or not, kind of more on a personal note, because it's a very frustrating situation, but it really hits home, and it's actually regarding the shooting that I was involved in my high school, and an editorial piece that came out of the Denver Post of actually one of my peers who was at the high school with me had written this using the shooting of Bailey to advance the agenda of gun control, encourage people to show up for the March for Our Lives, and try and actually start working to ban common sense guns and actually do common sense gun reform. So if I get a chance, I may read some of that. I did share it on my Facebook because I was very emotional and passionate about that yesterday, because I did see it and it kind of infuriated me how they tried to use that one. Sickening. But shocker, we have actors dramatizing the different shootings, and now we have the scripted questions during a CNN debate and discussion on the issue to try and promote a certain agenda. I don't know how we could possibly think that would never happen, right? It would never happen. Craziness. Hour number 3, The Voice of Reason, coming up. Lots more to happen on the show. Don't miss it. This is The Voice of Reason.
It's time for Reason.
But what else can we do? You and I the parents. I don't have a kid in school yet. She's 3. She will be going to school very, very soon. Am I going to have to be worried about taking her to school every single day? Am I going to have to be worried about someone wanting to harm her at an elementary school? And as we talk about legislation, as we talk about gun safety programs, as we talk about these things that the government can do to some degree, at the end of the day, it's you and I.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Yeah, welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 3 of the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Also simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Good Thursday morning. Welcome aboard. Great to have you along today. It is the pre-Friday celebration. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know the weekend's right around the corner, and I'm kind of excited about that. What say you? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, which I cannot believe that we are in the last Thursday of February. This has been the fastest month. I get it's the fastest month of the year already with a short month by a day or two, but still the fastest month already as we are in the last Thursday of the month. And as we do every single Thursday, the last Thursday of the month, I am excited to have back in studio from Phil's Coins, 9344 West Central Avenue, the man himself, Mr. Phil Martinez. We should have like a some kind of sounder, you know, like the guy that walks through for WWE and the smoke and the music and everything. It's Phil Martinez, and have you come in. That'd be kind of fun.
Might be.
I may have to work on some imaging for that. That would be
just
good.
What I need.
That's right. There we go. Phil, how are you, sir?
Just fine, sir.
It's good to see you again. And the second month of the year already. I've been tracking a little bit of the markets, and they've been going down a little bit. So the gold and silver prices, I've seen them drop the last few days.
Well, actually, silver is up just a hair.
Is it up a hair? Okay.
It was pushing.
I guess that was last week when I was looking at it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it
goes back and forth.
All the experts that are supposed to really know about this stuff are saying that silver is the buy of the century right now.
Buy of the century right now. What price is it right now?
I had about $16.91 last night.
$16.91. Still floating around there.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah, you kind of need to get silver now, because I don't know how much longer this is going to. Now, we were saying that last summer as well, saying it was going to go up pretty dramatically, we thought, and it was predicted to go up quite a bit, but I don't know how much longer the price can stay this low. I don't know.
Well, I talked to a guy that follows this really close. He watches all the media, reads about it all the time, and he's saying that the new Secretary of the Treasury, whoever the big shot is, they're actually talking about, there is a law in the books that says that you can't short more than 1 year's production. Well, right now we've probably got 4, 5, 6 years short production, so which is against the law. But there isn't a part of the government that keeps track of this. So basically, nobody does what's right. And this guy supposedly was going to come in and make all these companies that maybe you have 10 ounces of silver on short contracts, and you're going to have to go back to 3. Well, if you know anything about short contracts, you've already bought it or already sold it.
Right.
So if all of a sudden you have to go out and buy 20 million, 200 million ounces of silver now, the price could soar astronomically. Now, he came in and then he kind of backed off what he was talking about doing, but they're still looking at this. So if this happens this year or at any point, we're going to see a huge upswing. I mean, silver could basically triple to quadruple from where it is right now.
It is wild that we have government agencies regulating every aspect of our lives right now, and yet we don't have someone saying, hey, you know what, you're not allowed to buy those short contracts for more than a year out, but we're not going to regulate that or oversee that. That's weird that the government does not have that system in place now.
If you think about it, the problem is that most of these people are the big banks, the banks that are too big to fail. So if they have to start losing millions or billions of dollars, then that's trickled down economics to the smaller banks, and everything goes into chaos. I mean, when we had all the financial crisis, these companies made huge amounts of money on stuff that didn't exist, and then turned around and told everybody they were losing money, and government jumped right in and bailed them all out.
Oh, sure. We can't let them fail.
So, that's right. You can't let them fail. So this is why they've hesitated to do this.
Wow. It's interesting to see. So the prices, who knows what's going to happen with them soon, but kind of bouncing right. What's the highest that you've seen it over since the beginning of the year?
We got up since the beginning of the year back in December, though, I think we got up close to 18.
Okay, so it just trickled up to about, but it's been floating around between 16 and 18 really over the last really long time, actually.
Yeah, yep. I mean,
gold, and it's same story?
Gold fell yesterday $20, I think.
Wow.
So, I mean, I bought some gold at one point. We were having trouble with our computers, and I bought some gold and then turned around, found out the number wasn't right. I may have trouble even selling it for what I paid for it. So, but we're still buying. I mean, right now there's still lots of people. We're buying so much. I'm turning stuff down at the shop.
I was just about to ask. I know the last 4 or 5 months that we've talked, you've said that more people are selling and you're buying it in than really selling it in your store. That's still going on. Same story.
Yeah. I mean, I had a guy come in the other day and we bought huge amounts, over $60,000 worth. And I pushed him out the door with $500 silver dollars because I didn't have the money to buy anything else. Don't know what I'm going to do with them. And then I had a guy come in last week and wanted to know what I'd pay for a couple silver dollars. And I told him, and he says, so you'd pay this much for 600 of them? And I said, no. I'll be back $1 back. I said, just because you only had 2, I kind of offered a little extra. But I said, if you're going to sell 600 of them, and well, I got this. And then I had a dealer call me from Washington State, and he bought some, paid too much for them. And he wants to sell me about $350 for what he paid for them, but I don't want to pay that much for them either, so he's going to lose money on those. Wow. But so I'm turning stuff down.
But with stuff, it's like you mentioned, and we've talked about this really the last couple of months too. The price is so low.
Right.
Why is it not a buying market right now instead of a selling market?
I don't know. I mean, it's not just Wichita. I mean, like I say, it's only Wichita, but it's not. It's everywhere in the country.
Weird.
Yeah. I mean, the other day I was talking to a big guy. They're one of the top gold buyers in the country. MS-63 slabbed $20 gold pieces that used to bring $450 over spot. Right now, the big boys are buying them at 99% of melt. So here's really a nice coin, three points above uncirculated, that they're not even buying at melt. Wow. And we're buying them. We went out and checked our computers the other day, went against everybody out there, and took what they're paying. And right now we're paying as strong as basically anybody in the United States, a little bit behind, 20-30%, 20 or 30 cents back of some of the biggest buyers, but at the same time we're 30 or 40, 50 cents over some of the weaker buyers. So we're right there in the hunt of things as far as nationwide of what we pay.
I made this analogy a few weeks ago, actually, when we were talking about when the stock market dropped those few, that drastic big push, and everybody was panicky, and everybody was beginning to blame Trump, saying that, well, Trump's nice little economic push, burst, and the bubble burst, whatever. I made the analogy of the fact that it's like weeding the air out of the fluids in your car, where sometimes you have those air bubbles. You need to go through that, and you have those bubbles. Now that we're not artificially injecting and raising our economy through the Obama stimulus packages, we're doing it naturally. We're going to see some of these little bubbles burst in these little pockets of air that we need to start working out of. Is that what we're seeing maybe right now with the stock market and with gold and silver included in that, to where it's going to fluctuate a little bit, but we still have some work to get some of the air bubbles out of the system before it's actually stable again?
Stock market, I'd say yes, because basically it's to a certain degree, I think personally it's overvalued. So therefore, you're going to see these little hiccups. I mean, you listen to all the experts. Well, it's just a little bubble. Don't worry about it. The stock market is still strong. Yeah. Get right back in. Buy. Don't turn your back on the stock market. As far as precious metals, it's too much manipulation in the markets. I mean, just like I'm saying, all these banks that have got all these short contracts. The other day, a couple of years ago, I called a company in California, and I'm thinking, we ought to be long on silver, and I'm talking to him. So, what do you advise? Go short. And I'm going, why would you want to go short on silver right now? You ought to be going long on silver. Oh no, we want to go short. So then I called another company in Dallas, Texas, that has their own precious metals exchange and watches all this. And I talked to some guy, and I got a hold of trading, and per word, verbatim, he read me the same script off the same piece of paper that the other guy in California told me.
Wow.
And I finally dawned on me that the people that are at the big banks have so much influence. They influence what these brokers tell everybody. They're not free thinkers. They only do what they're told to do or tell you what they're told to sell you. And I believe that not only are the banks shorting the contracts, but if everybody that's calling in like me trying to buy silver and they're telling me to short the contracts, I'm shorting the contracts to help the bank and don't realize it.
Wow.
And I mean, right per word. I mean, if I'd recorded it all down, the other guy would have told me exactly word for word what I heard from. So I went from California to Texas and heard the same thing. So it just dawned on me that everybody's telling everybody to short silver, and all they're doing is helping the big banks make more money.
Let's put on the tinfoil conspiracy theory hats for a second here. Is this going to lead to the big bubble bursting, especially when it comes to like silver and gold, with the prices artificially where they're at right now because of buying and selling years out when you're not supposed to be doing so? Are we going to see some type of burst and something drastic, dramatic, and devastating happen relatively soon?
I don't know. I mean, it all depends on basically it all depends on the government. If the government makes these banks come back in line.
Wait, we have to depend on the government?
I know. Well, now there was a group in Britain that basically walked in the morning and said silver is going to be such and such amount of money, and they did. Well, they found they were manipulating the markets. Whatever they said was what it was. Well, some multi-millionaire sued them, won a major lawsuit for millions and millions of dollars because they were manipulating the markets, which is against the law.
Sure.
Okay, so he won a big lawsuit. They broke up their little conglomerate, and now they don't have a group over there doing it anymore. So at some point, some big multi-millionaire is going to sue the banks. But there again, these are the banks that are too big to fail. Now, whether they can get a lawyer that will handle this or the traction, but technically to prove that they're manipulating the markets is a piece of cake.
Sure.
So if they get sued, we're right back into money.
Right back into where we need to be. We got to take a break, but I do got to ask last question for this before we change topics. For the people that have come in to want to buy some things, what's been the popular item to get right now? What's the hot commodity?
Right now, probably junk silver's been the hot commodity.
Still?
Just
the junk silver.
It is so undervalued. I mean, you can buy junk silver for $17.25 an ounce. It should be running $22 an ounce. So and when people come in and go, I said, you can buy junk silver and silver not move anything and make 30% on it. So, I mean, so junk silver, if there's anything that we have a shortage in the shop on, we'll go from having 2 or 3 bags, which that's $1,000 to the bag, and have 3,000 face, and a week later not have anything. So, I mean, so junk silver still a buy. We bought so many backdate silver eagles. We're selling them at 3 over spot by the roll, and that's cheaper than I sell 500. So but we got surplus.
These markets are weird, I tell you.
Crazy.
Just when you think you figure it out, then nope, never mind. Just kidding. Phil Martinez, Phil's Coins, 9344 West Central Avenue, opening at 9:30 today. You can swing by, check them out, ask questions. It's an industry that I knew very, very little of. Go in there, and you guys, I love how you explain it, break it down, and let people feel comfortable about what they're getting and what the products are and the differences of them to make the reasonable choices. Got to take a break. When we come back, we shift gears a little bit. I got some political discussions to ask you about.
There was no doubt in my mind.
See, there it is. I mean, being a political show, we got to have a little fun with this.
Fired up and ready.
We'll do that when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker KQAM.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, 25 minutes past the hour. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. It is a Thursday. The pre-Friday celebration's already begun. You're celebrating. I'm celebrating. It's a party all around, right?
I'm working. I don't know about you. Party.
I don't know what world you're living in there.
I work for a living.
That's all right. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Phil Martinez of Phil's Coins in here for another 5 minutes or so as we're talking the gold and silver. But I have to ask your thoughts on some politicking, as we always enjoy to do a little bit. But I mentioned this in the previous hour, the story of President Donald Trump wanting to propose the change in the SNAP program to, instead of actually give out the food stamp cards, that he's actually going to send packaged food in the mail and say, hey, you know what, because there's a lot of fraud going on with people selling their EBT cards or using it for things that you shouldn't be using it for, that we're actually going to send you the packaged food. And a lot of people panicking about that. I love the idea because, you know what, I've heard stories about the, people that are buying candy and donuts and crackers and stuff with their EBT cards that they shouldn't be getting. I've seen them buy the really, really expensive like lobster and stuff that you and I, being just working folk, can't usually afford on a normal basis. And then, of course, the selling of them to be able to, get cash and then buy alcohol or whatever they want to with them. If they just have strictly, here's some crappy food for you at your doorstep, and this may make you not want to be on it for the rest of your life, I almost see that as a benefit.
I hadn't heard anything about this yet, but technically right off the top, it does make sense because we both know that there's huge amounts of fraud.
Sure.
I think it was just right here in town the other day, they got somebody for doing the same thing because they were buying, about a year and a half ago, they were just buying these guys' cards, turning them into the government, and they were paying them 80 cents on the dollar, and they were making 20% plus what they were making supposedly on the groceries.
Sure.
And then on top of that, these people are out buying drugs or whatever they want with it. So
of course.
There's too much waste in the program. And if you have a surplus product, I see that's how you raise the price of surplus product.
Mm-hmm. Here you go. Here's a nice little packaged meal for you. Have fun and have at it. And if you don't like it, oh well.
Get a job and go to work.
Get a job and go to work and actually be able to buy something a little bit better than the government-provided food for you.
Absolutely.
I kind of like a program. Now, you have, or at least you did have, do you still have those emergency meal package deals?
Oh, we sell freeze-dried. We don't sell the packages.
Okay, so it's a freeze-dried
basically,
stuff.
it's a, you can kind of mix or match or make whatever. I mean, if you want to, you can make whatever with it. We use it at the house all the time.
Okay. What's all included in that?
You name it, it's there.
Really?
I mean, cheese, cooking milk, drinking milk, hamburger, sausage, beef, chicken, green peppers, red peppers, onions, sausage.
Wow.
I mean,
whatever you need.
We can take these powdered, I won't say powdered, freeze-dried eggs, and put some bell peppers and some sausage in it, and soak it in water for a few minutes, and drain off the excess and pour it in a pan and cook it up. And you would be hard pressed to tell me the difference between something that was made with fresh eggs and fresh sausage and peppers as to this.
Really?
Well, yeah. First time my wife ever gave me some of this, I'm going, oh man, you don't expect me to actually eat this, do you? But
that would be my concern.
No. Hell, so she uses it for everything. The other day she got some little chunks of broccoli and used it in a broccoli casserole around the holidays, and she goes, what do you think of that? And I said, there was something missing. I said, it tasted the same. They just wouldn't know. I said, I'm not sure what it was wrong. And she goes, well, I used freeze-dried broccoli, and instead of being, freeze-dried celery.
Okay.
Instead of being where you chop the celery up and it's kind of cooked and it's got a little andante and it's still a little crispy to bite, all of a sudden these pieces are way smaller and you lack that chew, but the flavor was there. So, I can take something and, they're basically, you can take anything, swap it out for freeze-dried, and unless you're just a real connoisseur of some particular item, I don't think you can tell the difference.
You can't tell it. Wow. Have you ever had the dried, the powdered milk?
No. Now that I have, that I haven't.
I'm a little scared to try powdered milk.
Yeah.
I don't know why. There you go.
As a kid, mom used to buy powdered milk, and then she'd mix it up, and then we had a farmer we'd go buy some real milk from, and we kind of mixed it half and half to kind of keep the expenses down.
You go. That works. That's a good idea, too.
I wasn't a big fan of powdered milk, trust me. But
not a big fan of that one. Yeah. Phil Martinez, Phil's Coins. It's always a pleasure to chat with my friend. It goes by way too fast, but get there. Phil Martinez, Phil's Coins, 9344 West Central Avenue. You guys open it up at 9:30 today. Y'all ready to go?
Yep.
It's going to be a fun one. It's good to talk to you, my friend. We'll get you back in next month.
Good to see you. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure right there. Let's take a break. Wrapping up the show today. Your thoughts and calls when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason.
Haven't let your light shine down.
Patriotism is alive and well. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
That's what it is. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. Can you believe that it's a Thursday? The pre-Friday celebration has begun as we're wrapping up today on the show. 316-721-8255. Thanks again to Phil Martinez of Phil's Coins joining the show. Always love chatting with him the last Thursday of the month. I've noticed a trend, and I got some calls online. We'll get to you here right directly. I have noticed a trend, and I noticed a kind of an ongoing topic all throughout the show today. In hour number one, we talked about some of the shenanigans in the state legislature with the misdirection of what priorities we need to be talking about. Instead of addressing the serious issues of our budgetary needs or the Supreme Court or the education or however you want to look at it, we're talking about trying to ban and put fines in for people spinning their wheels at intersections. $100 fine. And that's going through the House right now. In the gun debate, or the school debate, we're talking about the common sense gun control and what we can do to ban guns as opposed to looking at the serious issue like mental illness. Last hour, we talked about the EBT cards and the food stamp program and how we're focused on how dare we actually try and look at cutting some of the funds, auditing some of the funds when it comes to the SNAP program, how we're actually dispersing it with a package of food as opposed to an actual EBT card, instead of looking at the fact that we have a lot of waste in the program. The Farm Bill, 80% of the Farm Bill, again, is quote-unquote nutrition, and the food actually going out as opposed to crop insurance or subsidies for the farmers or some of these other programs that actually need to be looked at and discussed. We're talking about nutrition within the Farm Bill. Misdirection all across the board. No matter what discussion or what topic we actually look at, we're focused on the issues and the pieces of the information that don't necessarily need to be addressed. They do, but after the larger chunk of them needs to be addressed because they don't want you to actually pay attention to what's really, really important. Let's go to the phones. The phones are lighting up. 316-721-8255. Let's go to line number one. Good morning. What's your name?
It's Wallace.
Wallace, good morning, sir. How are you?
Oh, doing well. A couple of things. The guns in schools. People. I just want them to know that all these politicians that are saying this is ridiculous to have armed guards or armed teachers at schools. These are the people that send their kids to a school called Sidwell Friends, which is where the elitists send their kids. Okay. Last time I looked, they had just shy of 1,100 students in that school, and they had 11 armed security guards, and they were looking to hire 2 more. So they have 1 armed guard for every 100 students, but they don't want you to have, an armed teacher or armed guards at your school. See, the other thing is, if we're going to capitulate and we're going to say, okay, go ahead, ban, you bump fire stocks, and okay, well, we're going to suspend your Second Amendment rights until age 21. Well, damn it, if you can't buy a gun till you're 21, you damn sure shouldn't be able to go out and have an abortion until you're 21. If you can't defend your life, you certainly shouldn't be able to take one. I mean, isn't that just common sense? Let's see the master of the art of the deal. If he's going to give something, what are we going to get? Is this about gun grabbing, or is this about saving lives? If it's about lives, what about the 300,000+ aborted human beings for convenience?
Well, I think Wallace, I think we already know the answer to that. That the activists on the boots, on the ground, the activists that are actually marching, the ones that are actually on the grounds doing this, they're doing it for the children. The ones that are instigating this to encourage them to do that, they're doing it about the control. We already know the priorities of the progressives, and they don't have that common sense, which is why we feel like sometimes we're banging our head against the wall when it comes to these debates. But whether you're talking about the gun confiscation versus security in the schools, whether you're talking about wanting to limit spending on a social program and make it more efficient as opposed to being upset because of the fact that we're trying to do so and we're not looking at the actual numbers, no matter what discussion that we look at in politics, I've made this case before, the progressive side of the aisle, there are the boots on the ground, the emotional bleeding hearts, what they like to call them, the emotional touchy-feely ones that are trying to do it with good intentions, but they're just unfortunately very naive to the facts of what's happening. And then you have the higher-ups, the power, the political leaders, the party leaders, whoever they are, encouraging them to do that because they see the end game with the control that they're going to get in the end if they get to if they actually get to promote what they're doing.
Well, I mean, I am tired of giving everything and getting nothing. This nonsense that they can inhibit a person's constitutional black letter law right to a firearm. That they can infringe on. That they can maneuver all around. But a manufactured right to have an abortion, that's hands off. You can have as much as you want, as young as you are. And then these same kids that are, and I don't want to attack these kids. They're grieving. They don't understand exactly what happened. They're still, they're young. Their brains are still forming.
Sure.
it's a trauma, and I don't mean to attack them, but these are the same group of kids that, and I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday, they cyberbully, just using smartphones essentially, cyberbully 4,500 of their own classmates to the point they torment them to suicide. 4,500 kids kill themselves.
Yet they want to confiscate guns because, well, remember the argument, the guns are they're different from when the Second Amendment was actually drafted. I actually made the case online, too. If we're going to talk about the fact that guns have advanced and that we should not allow people to have the guns today because they're too advanced as opposed to when the Second Amendment was drafted, then all the cyberbullying, all the suicides that happen from text messages and social media from people wanting to bully on there, maybe we should start banning people from there because we should silence your freedom of speech and your First Amendment.
Andy, I'm telling you, you know what the craziest thing that happened to me? I went into Best Buy the other day, and they were going to sell me a cell phone without a background check, without anything. They didn't even care how old I was. I could just buy a phone. I could get it on social media and torment people until they kill themselves.
You know what?
No background check. I mean, it was crazy.
That's really what we need. Background checks for cell phone purchases, for laptop and computer purchases, for the tablets. Wallace, I appreciate it. I want to take another phone call. But you're right. That's what we need. That I have now started a brand new movement. We have started it right here on this show. We need to do background checks for cell phone purchases. We need to do background checks when it comes to Facebook and social media subscriptions. We need to do background checks every time you buy a desktop computer because you could be going on. We don't know. We don't know you. Just like they don't know who has the hands of those guns and who actually has their hands on a gun to be able to do something bad. And we need to get rid of the guns. We need to get rid of the freedom of speech. You should not be allowed to have a blog online and have your opinions heard. You should not be able to get on social media because you could potentially you could snap. You could have a bad day. You could be in a fight with your significant other. And you're going to go on social media and you're going to start cyberbullying people. I don't know what you could do. You're a threat to me, and therefore I need to start screening you on social media. We should do this. It's going to happen. Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Good morning, Jim. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. You heard? There's a ton of stuff this morning. Before I get to what I wanted to say, I wanted to also comment. I met Kris Kobach back in 2007, and he is a wonderful person.
Indeed.
So anyway, on your news, an hour or so ago on your station, I heard somebody, and I don't remember it because I just turned the radio on. But apparently one of these parents going around the country promoting gun control and stuff because their child got killed is a hired actor.
Yes.
It's under investigation. That ties into something else I saw on the TV news yesterday. The Russians, the same ones who are accused of meddling with our election with computer bots and all the rest of it, are also involved in the gun control debate. So some of the stuff we see out there you can't believe.
Well, and you're right. I mean, and it's funny that they still try and link this whole Russia investigation deal with Trump and with everything that they're trying to do about it colluding with them for the election and how it's altering the election. They had individuals that were on social media blasting out info on social media. Did they actually affect the election? No, they didn't necessarily affect the election. That's not anything that we can actually gauge. But they said that they were involved in that. So it's they're always going to be, no matter what you're talking about, whether it's business, whether it's politics. If there's money or power involved, there's going to be some false play at hand when it comes to this. Yes, during a shooting. Now, again, I don't think that the tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theory is the fact that that the actual shooting was staged, sort of thing, as some would say, and say, oh, it's all staged and it was all anticipated and they were ready to go. I don't believe that, but I believe that the media does have some hired actors to go to these incidences to create drama and be the ones on TV talking about their story, talking about how terrible it actually was. So that way they can get the ratings, and that way they can promote a political agenda. Yes, there's going to be false play. There's false play with the attempted false play in the elections with the Russians. There's attempted false play with the agenda to have all these crying kids on TV talking about gun control because that's the agenda they want to promote. Jim, I appreciate it. 721-825-5721-TALK. Let's go line number 3. Good morning. What's your name?
Hello, Andy.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, it's Paul.
Hey, Paul. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks.
Good.
Your show, The Voice of Reason.
Yes.
Right? like yesterday, I called in about my solar panels, and
Sure.
later a lady called back and suddenly turned the whole topic, the whole subject, into petty partisanship.
How so?
Comparing so-called conservative values and so-called liberal values. It all became a carnival type atmosphere instead of a voice of reason type atmosphere. I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay, well, explain a little bit. I remember vaguely the discussion that we had. I remember, you saying that you purchased close to like $1,600 in the solar panels, and then I do remember a call after that talking about how there are a lot of subsidies for a lot of the programs with individuals that want to buy the alternative energies and the government subsidizing these programs. And I remember making the comment that we should not have those government subsidies because it needs to be done naturally through the private market as opposed to the government pushing some type of industry one way or another. I don't necessarily see that as partisan other than just the fact that we do have subsidies for alternative programs, and I'm not a fan of them.
Well, it was that lady caller that she calls once or twice every day to you, it seems. And she brought up about Jimmy Carter putting the solar panels on the White House.
Okay.
I don't know why she went back to that and pulled that out. But
well, it's a historical fact, but that's okay.
Yeah,
I got no problem with Jimmy Carter putting solar panels on there, other than the fact that it was taxpayer funded, and I'm not necessarily a fan of it if it's inefficient.
Well, that's a good point too. But she failed to mention that as soon as Reagan come in, he took them off.
Sure.
And threw them away. So why even bring up that subject? I don't understand why she's going.
Well, I think the case she was making was that
reasonable conversation.
We can still have a reasonable conversation. I think that it was just the example of that this alternative energy has been around for a really long time. And going back to that example is that Jimmy Carter tried to put them on the White House all the way back then. So this type of alternative energy and this discussion of alternative energy has been around for a long time, and through those years, all the way back, 50s.
Nothing to do with partisanship, does it? I mean, partisanship is petty. It serves no purpose other than division.
Well, that is true, but there is some we have to admit that there is partisanship to the discussion. We have a side that's more on the progressive side that is very much anti-oil because we're raping the earth of its resources. We're destroying the earth with oil and natural gas, and we're fracking, which is destroying the earth and causing all these terrible earthquakes. And we have this side that says it is so bad to have oil and natural gas and that type of energy that we should force everybody to go towards alternative energies, regardless of how efficient they may or may not be.
So that perspective exaggerates, just like the other perspective exaggerates by bringing things like abortion into the issue. If you want to change the subject, drag abortion into it, for example.
Well, it's a comparison. I get your point, Paul, but I think it's a comparison. I try to relate to one topic to another all the time to try to explain different points and how the same tactics of an argument are being used in numerous different types of issues and debates on different topical issues. And this one being, there's exaggeration on some sides. I am not one that likes to exaggerate, but I will make the case. There are progressives that want to absolutely hate. Not all progressives, but there are many progressives who want to absolutely hate oil and natural gas, that want you to be forced on electric cars, that want you to be forced on wind and solar panel energy, regardless of how expensive or inexpensive it is, regardless of how inefficient they may be, regardless of how technology may not be to where it needs to be for the market to accept it yet, but they want you to be forced onto it. And I'm sure there are some conservatives that say absolutely no solar panels or wind energy whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. I only want my coal, oil, and natural gas. I'm sure there are some of those, but the reasonable people say, you know what? We understand that there's a need for oil, natural gas, and coal right now because it is the cheapest at the most efficient. And then, as things begin to evolve, then eventually maybe one day we can actually go a different direction and have something different. But that point is not there yet, and the government should not be subsidizing it to force the industry to be transitioning when it's not ready to do so. And I think that's a valid point. Appreciate the call, though, Paul, very much. 316-728-8255. Let's take another phone call. Good morning. What's your name?
Yeah, this is Jim.
Hey.
I wanted to finish a comment.
Go for it.
The people who are upset with President Trump because he is begun talking about gun control, he's deflecting the rhetoric. He's cooling the thing down. We don't have a bump stock ban. We don't have bans on a lot of things. But by talking about these things, a lot of the pressure to do something instantaneously has been cooled off a little bit. I'm not thrilled with the idea, but I'm glad to see the politics to cool it down. Because while I was listening while I was on hold, I was watching TV Chirons. The words at the bottom of the screen, and the story was about how the state of Ohio is training teachers to shoot.
The FASTER program, yes.
Right. And, another point that's important, if you put untrained teachers with only 8 hours of class, the same class you took, the same class that I took years ago, if you put them in a classroom, and my wife said, well, they might not even shoot, and it doesn't matter if the teacher is a marksman or shoots back. It's just having them there with the potential, because it can't be any worse than it is now.
Exactly.
Right now, if anybody gets into the school, they talk about putting guards and metal detectors. But what happens when the killer or killers, maybe terrorists, attack the school and simply shoot their way through the front door? The only security which actually is there and functions, to any great degree, is arming the teachers.
Jim, I appreciate it very much. You're absolutely right. And look, I mean, you don't have to be trained like a military-style individual to be able to fend off an armed assailant. Just by the sheer threat of the fact that in a school with 100 different classrooms and 40 of them actually have concealed carry with teachers with handguns, you're going to think twice, because you're not going to know what teachers actually do or don't, and you're going to second guess walking into a classroom or a school to be able to cause something like that. And you hopefully will never, ever, ever have to pull out that firearm or even use it. That's the goal. We don't want them to be pulling out the firearms and using them whenever they can. The goal is to have them there so you don't have to. But some people just can't connect that. Appreciate that, Jim. Let's take one more phone call before we take a break. We got about a minute and a half left here. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Helen.
Oh, hi, Helen. How's it going?
Just great. And I'm calling regarding the government trying to regulate, the age of who can purchase a gun. Well, at the age of 21. Well, okay, then they should not cause or allow people, 18-year-olds, to enlist into the military until they're 21.
Because they're not responsible enough.
Yeah, well, because, okay, so then if we can allow 18-year-olds to enlist the military at 18, then why should they not be allowed to purchase guns?
True. That's a great point. Why, the whole discussion about being able to join the military, being able to vote, being able to buy alcohol, being able to buy tobacco, if they're not old enough or if they're not responsible, which I find completely bogus, and hell, I appreciate it. We got to take a break, but I find completely bogus. If you remember back in the old days, people used to be an adult, used to be out of school, graduated, and in the workforce by the age of 16, 17 years old, because that we used to have more responsibility on them, and they became an adult a lot earlier. Nowadays, that's not necessarily the case, and we're trying to prolong the evolvement, prolong the adulthood as long as we possibly can. Which is unfortunate. And the more we push this back, I think the more that we're going to be hurting. We need to in my opinion, bring the ages back down to where they used to be, at least to the age of 18. This is The Voice of Reason. Got to take one more break, wrapping up the show today. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Well, another one in the books that goes by way too quick. I want to thank again everyone tuning into the show every single morning. We love having you here. We love all the discussions and all the phone calls. Whether we agree, disagree, it's always great to have you on and having that diverse conversation, because that's what it's all about. We can't do it without you, and we thank you and appreciate you for that so much. This is your show. As always, nothing's going to change unless you actually do it yourself. Learn that at a very young age. And hey, I'm even a millennial. It's wild, right? This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is The Voice of Reason. Have a great Thursday, everybody.